Hello, everyone, and welcome to our virtual presentation of Four Brown Girls with Tender Hearts and Sharp Edges with author Prisca Dorcas Mojica Rodriguez and our moderator for tonight, Yesika Salgado. We have signed book plates available. To request one with your purchase, make sure to write signed book plate in the order comments when you're checking out your cart on our website. To access our website, just click on the green purchase button directly below the viewer's screen. It'll redirect you to the purchase page. Also, we'll be doing an audience Q&A towards the end of the event. So if you have any questions for Prisca and Yesika, just type them in through the Ask a Question button at the very bottom of the screen. You can also vote for any questions you'd like, and the more popular ones will make their way to the top of the list. All right, so let me introduce our guests, and then I will turn off my camera and hand things over to them. So Prisca Dorcas Mojica Rodriguez is a writer and activist working to shift the national conversation on race. She's the founder of Latina Rebels, which boasts over 350,000 followers across social media platforms, and she has appeared on NPR, Teen Vogue, Cosmopolitan, Telemundo, and Univision. She was invited to the Obama White House in 2016 and has spoken at over 100 universities in the past 3 years. And joining Prisca tonight is Yesika Salgado. She is a Los Angeles-based Salvadoran poet who writes about her family, her culture, her city, and her fat brown body. She is a 2-time National Poetry Slam finalist and the recipient of the 2020 International Latino Book Award in Poetry, and her work has been featured in the LA Times, Teen Vogue, CNN, NPR, and many more. So with that said, I'm going to hand things over to our guests. Enjoy the talk, everyone.
Well, welcome everybody. Again, I'm Yesika Salgado, and this is my beloved friend and superstar, Prisca. I love your first name. I mean, I love your whole name, but I love your first name. How are you feeling?
It's been a lot, to be honest.
You're 3 days postpartum. Are you feeling bruised up and banged up?
I feel raw. Raw as fuck. It is bad. I'm just like, wow. I don't know if I'm not supposed to curse on here.
You know what? They knew who they booked. We're here.
We're here. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. And if you don't have us back, well, we're here.
We're doing the thing.
So we're celebrating the birth of Four Brown Girls with Sharp Edges and Tender Hearts. And this is the exact description of my dear friend. Your eyeliner is your signature, but your biggest signature is your tender heart. And I know that you have some passages to read for us, but I wanted to talk about the before the book, before you read from the book, and then I'm gonna let you jump into that. So I met Prisca, digitally met Prisca somewhere in 2013, 12, 13, somewhere around there or something.
Yeah.
The internet was a wild, wild place back then. Influencers were like barely beginning to make a bus around the time. Flat Tummy Tea was thriving on Instagram. That was the time. But I stumbled across Prisca through Latina Rebels, and then her articles were everywhere. And you wrote for every major publication, digital publication at the time. Like if it was Latinx, you had written for it. Even if it wasn't Latinx, you had written for it. From feminist publications to POC publications to everything. And when you were writing all of those columns and articles, did you ever have a book like on the horizon?
No. I couldn't have. Like, you know how you've been writing your poems for forever? I have not. I did not. That was not my story. Like, it never even occurred. I didn't journal. I didn't think that I was a good writer. And then I'm like a child of Instagram in a lot of ways. Like, I had this page and I just started writing these captions. And Tanisha Ramirez reached out to me on Facebook through a DM because of my captions on Latina Rebels.
Wow.
And she was like, "You're a writer," and I was like, "What?" And she's the one who even, like, I didn't call myself a writer for like probably 6 months, and then my pieces like Dear Woke Brown Girl, so what starts my book, that went viral like 2 months after I had started writing. It was like it just exploded, and she was like, "You're a writer, see?" And I was like, "Shut up." Like, I struggled with that. So I'd never thought like, oh, this is a thing, this is a career. The whole time I've been agarrada, like, what the hell is happening? And when are people gonna realize this is fake? Yeah.
I remember that, like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that you, like, didn't call yourself a writer before you started writing your columns. I was just like, oh, this is a writer, and I didn't know that kind of writing could exist. All I knew was journalism, fiction, nonfiction, and poetry and prose, right? I didn't know this in between genre could exist. And I remember reading you and my mind being blown and being like, this is like a journal entry, but it has structure, and it also like is educating me at the same time that I'm getting a glimpse into this woman's life. And I remember then, as we became friends, I told you once that I'm like, how did you start writing for Huffington Post? You know? And I'm like, I think I want to try that. But I was so afraid to like venture, because I had built the narrative that I was only a poet and I wasn't good at any other writing because I didn't have any of the traditional education, right? Yeah. But seeing you and seeing how fearless you were gave me permission to do that. And you put me in contact with Tanisha, right? And then we started working on the Huffington Post. And if it hadn't been for you making that connection and me being a contributor, very briefly, but a contributor for the Huffington Post, Suelta, my column with Remezcla, would have never happened.
Yeah.
Like, if there was not a Prisca in this world, there would not be a Yesika in the version that people know that. And there would not be so many other versions. Like, and I'm only one story in all of these versions. And I think that that's really important for when people pick up this book, that I wanted to start with that, like ask you that question before you went into your passages, because I think it's really important. Folks think that these books fall out of our head fully formed. and there's a saying that says you've been writing your first book your whole life, you know, and for you have all your lived experiences that you've been living your whole life. And if you hadn't gone through all of the things you talk about in this book, you wouldn't have them to write about. And then if you hadn't written your columns for all those years, and it had the triumphs and the heartbreaks and the frustrations that all of that brought along, if you hadn't had Latina Rebels, if you hadn't had any of that, if you hadn't created Latina Rebels, none of that would be here. And so many of us wouldn't exist in the versions that we exist now. And I think that that's like, you're like a matriarch in our community, whether you want to or not. But that's, I know it's such a, hearing matriarch, you're like,
no, I love it. I'm just like, do I? That is an honor.
No, but I see you as that. Like, I think of, I can name so many women that I see creating nowadays and doing amazing, dope, innovative things where they're pushing boundaries, but I could see your influence in the way that they're doing it. And some of them don't even know that you influence them, right? Like, Mango sometimes might not know that who my influences are. And so I'm like, no, like, the only reason why I realized that I could write a column is because Prisca was writing columns, right? And the only reason that I knew that I could tour in the way that I do is because, I mean, poets do the college circuits, but then I knew that I don't only have to perform poetry when I tour, because I saw you, I saw your talks. And I was like, this is, I mean, it's just, you're such a bad bitch. And I just love you and I love everything. But
thank you.
Yeah. And so, like, how many of the columns that you wrote made it into the book, or is everything from the book brand new just for the book?
A lot of what I've written, I feel like I've been writing this book for years since I started. There was like something that needed to be said some things that needed to be said, and I said them in certain ways, and then I curated my own work in a lot of ways. There's a lot of new stuff, but there's a lot of stuff. But I wrote, like, I was like prolific for like 3 years. I wrote over 200 articles like in 3 years. It was
say that from the mountaintops, because people don't know that they take that shit for granted. If you are prolific, your prolific years don't always last. And that's not a bad thing, and that doesn't make you a bad writer and doesn't make whatever. Yeah. But if you are in a moment where you're creating, take that and ride that train until it stops. Because there's the years that ask questions and the years that answer them. And I think the years where we're writing is when we're asking the questions. And then when we're working on the book is when we're answering the question, and we're like, I don't even have the answer, but I guess it's.
Yeah, the poet, you just like made so much sense of it all. But that's what you do. You name things for people really well.
I mean, and that's what you do too. Like, I remember Dear Woke Brown Girl, like, was one of them. I'm that girl too. And then reading your experiences with religion and like how you've had to redefine it for yourself, you know, like as a recovering Catholic, I've had to endure like a lot of that too. And like you were able to name things that hadn't become part of the dialogue around Latinidad. I think a lot of the things that not to erase like the ancestors and the shoulders we stand on, right, that came beforehand, but a lot of the conversation has always been male-centered, right? And there's always been like an occasional woman like fighting against it. But I really truly think that you and Latina Rebels were part of the pivot where the Latinx movement became very woman and femme-centered. And that's where we're
at. It still is. Yes. Yeah. All the snaps.
We're running this shit.
You had a snap. Yeah, we do.
And it's beautiful because like I've been looking at stuff that's happening. I'm like, what are the men up to?
Me too. I keep wondering the same thing. Está aburrido.
Like, what are you guys doing? Because like I don't see anything. No, not I mean, if you're the homie and you're watching, I love you. Your work is valid. But ours is more.
No, yeah.
But let's shift into your reading. And like, let's hear some of this beautiful, beautiful book, and then we'll keep talking afterwards.
Yeah, I want to read the Dear Brown Girl piece as it like stands today, I guess.
Yes, and I'm for those of you viewing, I'm here. I'm just stepping away from the camera so that we can focus on this yellow ray of sunshine. All right, go ahead, my love.
So the impetus for this piece, for me writing it, was like that I graduated from my master's program and found myself at graduation sitting with like my mostly white peers, and we were all getting the same degree. And I felt like it wasn't fair to acknowledge the many obstacles that some of us have to go through. Versus like I had a friend, her dad was like a dentist, and he like paid for her apartment, and she lived near campus and she didn't have a job. Versus like me, I worked like 30 hours a week. I had no support from my family. Like I had to like have a whole ass job basically. And do school full time also, and also be social. And also like I was the first Latina SGA president of my program. So I like had to put on a lot of hats to like make it in that space. And I wrote this because I was like, well, if nobody's gonna tell me I'm awesome, I will. So, Dear Brown Girl, you are eternal. You have a fire burning inside you, and it comes from your mommy side. Protect your fire. Protect that flame. You feel everything and feel nothing. You carry your pain, the pain that comes from asking too many questions, because once you've heard your chains rattle, you cannot unhear them. Yes, you persevere for yourself, but also for your mommy and your papi and for your little hermanita, who is only now beginning to understand the limitations that our cultura has placed on her. You're neither here nor there, but you're everywhere. You carry the cultura in your veins and academia in your heart. You have not forgotten where you come from, but you have learned and earned and maybe even forced your way into spaces not meant for you. You are poderosa like that. You defy the expectations of respectability, and you don't seem to give a fuck. Do you, brown girl? Your vocabulary is vast, and your wit is sharp. You are unstoppable. You're going places that no one in your family has ever been, and you're fearful of your fearlessness. You belong to no one, but are accountable to many. We depend on you. Don't let anyone else tell you differently. You are groundbreaking. Your parents, if they're like my parents, will brag about your brilliance, all while exhorting you to be more like their friends' daughters, the good, obedient daughters who did what they were told. Your parents say this because they do not know what to do with their brown girl. They haven't been able to hold your fire for some time now. But you must hold your parents in your heart as you dismantle the systems that have kept people like them down. They were kept down, but not you. So you owe it to them to keep fighting. Partners have tried to pin you down. They have tried to claim you, but you've resisted because you're not meant to belong to anyone. You belong entirely to yourself. Your laugh carries liberation in it. Brown girl, do not let them take away your passion, because they will try without any compassion to keep you down. But remember that without passion, you will extinguish. And so to be safe, make sure that you keep others nearby who can pick you up and light you back up again. Because brown girl, we need each other.
I'm clapping so you don't feel like you're like talking to yourself. Hold on. I'm back. Hold on, my camera was lagging. There we go. I'm back. I didn't know if you were gonna read more or you wanted to. Okay, that piece is so beautiful and your delivery is so gorgeous. I don't know why you be tripping about it on Twitter. You're like, I have to record something. I don't even know how to sound. I remember one time I gave you like a bunch of tips, and then like I heard you, and I was just like, why are you acting dumb? Like you already know what you're doing.
No, it's been I've done in video. I died. I went to record for the United Methodist Church a thing, and they did so many takes, and they kept being like, just relax. You know you're going downhill when they start telling you that. So I do not. Yeah. I'm normal if I feel like people are like there. I'm not good at like the perform it for a camera thing.
Yeah, well, you're not a performer. You're a storyteller, and like I think nowadays people conflate everything into one, right? Like they think that just because a lot of our work exists on one medium that we all are doing the same thing or we all have the same skill sets. Like I love performing. Like that's what I do. Like I was trained in it. Like that's the thing that I didn't just get up on. I used to like I wasn't good at it at all. Also, it took me years of like running against the wall and having my coaches be like, "Why do you always sound like you're about to cry?" And I'm like, "Damn, why are you bullying me?"
I can't.
In full disclosure, I had some medicine, and the medicine is
It's kicking in.
It's medicining. Okay, here we are.
I mean, I've been medicining myself, so
It's holy practices. But
yes.
okay, so back to the book, and we're gonna talk about that. I want to. Everybody said that they cried with your tea. With it's funny because everybody's like we're in tears, and we're like, we took medicine.
We feel nothing.
You're heartless. No, but I think it's beautiful that also like something that you've done, and even within the book, you talk about your fear of your fearlessness, and I think that shows up in everything you do. And for those of you that haven't read the book or don't have the book yet, first of all, you're sleeping, but it's okay because Vroman's going to fix that for you because there's a little link on here to purchase the signed book. And so once you get that, you'll understand everything that I'm talking about. And in the introduction, Prisca mentions that she has that like she's not like she's a fearless person, but that is fearful, right? And I think so, and I think I understand that feeling too, because you're like, oh, nothing really be scaring me, but that's scary. There's some stuff out here that I should be scared of,
I wrote a whole ass book.
A very personal book, like a very that talks extensively about your relationship with your parents, about your relationships with your faith, and how you've had to, your academic experiences, like the good and the bad. You talk about like toxic masculinity. You talk about your exes, and you don't just have regular exes. You have an ex-husband, which is like, I kind of can't wait to be able to be like, oh, my ex-husband, which one, and then be like, oh.
Yeah, it is. You level up a little, I think.
I think so, because then you're like my current husband, and they're like your current husband. Like that means there's been more in there. And there will always be another.
I love it.
But I know that like there's the chapter in toxic masculinity was phenomenal. But one of my favorite ones was your chapter of intersectionality. And this is the thing, if for myself who didn't go to college, right? I didn't even finish high school. But there's a lot of stuff that becomes you're told that you only have access to if you went to college, or that you're only intelligent enough to grasp if you sat in all of these lectures and classes and all these things. And the fact that you break that fourth wall, like you break that down, and then you explain it in a way that where you don't make me feel stupid, but you also educate me about it. And I thought that was so, the way you did that so flawlessly was that something that you focused a lot within the book, or is that something you just do naturally?
I think it's very natural. I think it's people always sound like wah 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 wah, and like, but I'm like receiving and I'm receiving it and trying to figure out how to understand what people are saying, and I'm automatically going to like, okay, that's what that means. Okay, that's what I think I understand that. Like I don't know. I think it's the immigrant in me that had to be around a lot of newness, and I had to I felt like I had to act like I knew things.
Yeah.
So I was always paying attention because I needed to not be the outsider. Like I was fighting for it. So like that's been like just going to grad school. I just felt like I used those skills on crack. Like I was just like, I know I don't belong here.
But how
am I gonna make my brain get this? Yeah.
And also, like, when I knew that you were gonna fuck this book up, like in a good way, like you were wrecking shit, when you have a chapter titled "White Fragility," that and then like about like how like white fragility affects so many things, but how many Latinx folks, we benefit also by being white adjacent, right? Like our proximity to whiteness is something, and like that's something I'm very aware of. Like, I mean, not a white woman, right? And I wouldn't ever get confused to it, but I'm a very light skinned woman. And I know that gives me access to certain things that lets me be bold in a way that if I was a Black Latina, I wouldn't be able to be so freely or without as many with more repercussions than what I have now, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, like I want to let's talk about that. Like when you were choosing these subjects, like did you have more? And you obviously like I mean, so I'm asking some of the questions I know the answers to, so I'm like trying to like middle ground with that because obviously I've been reading and like talking to you through this process.
Yeah.
But how did you choose what actually ended up becoming the book?
Yeah, I think I pitched 20 chapters or somewhere in the close to that. And my editor that I ended up picking was like, let's just condense this. Like some of these could be like something else. So like I had racism there and then I had white fragility. So it was like they can kind of be, maybe racism doesn't need to be explained. Like it doesn't need a whole chapter. We could just jump into this part already. So yeah, the decisions were made, but I kind of like, I don't know. I was just like, okay, entiendo. Like there was like no resistance to it on my part. I was just like, I can get there. It's just got to be longer chapters, but let's go.
We're just gonna write all there is to write. And like, which is your favorite chapter?
Today.
Let me make it easier.
Okay.
Which is your favorite chapter? Because when people ask me what's your favorite poem, like I'm heartbroken today, so this is what
Exactly, because it depends. Today the favorite chapter I think is imposter syndrome because it was easy to write, but it's not easy to read out loud to myself. It's like one of those things where the truth spills out, but maybe you weren't fully ready like it stung a little to say a lot of that.
Yeah, because there's something about just writing the words on paper that is liberating, right? Like you write it and you're like, oh, I feel good. And then when you realize, oh, other people are going to read this. Yeah. Oh, I have to read this after. Oh, this isn't. Like I'm not trying to like heal myself like actively in front of people while I'm reading it out loud, right?
Yeah.
But is it also like the one that's most prevalent for you right now, like the imposter syndrome? Since
oh my god, I'm like, what is happening? I just cannot believe. I'm waiting for the shoe to drop for some reason. Like it's like that trauma response. So I don't know.
And then, so you narrated your audiobook, right?
Yeah.
What was that one of the hardest chapters to get through? And it's really early on. It's just your third chapter.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't finish it without like my voice was shaking for sure. And they were like, keep it. I was like, oh fuck. So if y'all hear something, it'll be at the end of that one and toxic masculinity, almost the whole thing.
Well, yeah, the toxic. There's something that about the way that you write that is so compelling without it needing to do extra, like, you know what I mean? Like not that, like, again, you don't water things down, you don't dumb things down, but the way that you articulate them genuinely sounds like I'm talking to my homegirl. Yeah. Like this feels and sounds to me like any conversation I've ever had to you. It doesn't feel like you put on a writer hat and you changed, you know, and I think that's the most beautiful gift and what I'm most excited of thousands of people getting to experience you in the way that those of us that get to be your friends do, you know, and I think that's really beautiful. But a way that no one will ever experience her is the day that we actually met in person, which I was going to let today go without that story.
I cannot. Y'all have heard this a million times, right?
Even if you haven't, even if you have, here we go again, because I'm not where I don't care. I'm gonna just tell the story again. So Prisca, of course, Latina Rebels. If I'm saying Latina Rebels and you have no idea what's happening, I need you to catch up. Go to Instagram, punching Latina Rebels on your Instagram, and this beautiful page that's ran along with 5 other women or 4 other women. 4 other women. It's 5 of them in total, but it was founded by Prisca, and in 2012,
13,
in 2013, and a lot of the pages you follow now are a replica of that page. Not in a bad way. I think it just gave people permission to create their own versions of Latina Rebels, which is literally challenging Latinidad, challenging the world we live in, educating ourselves through infographics and through posts and a lot of the stuff that's really popular now. You saw, and this is not to say that other folks haven't done this before, but I feel for the Latinx community, we didn't have a lot of people pushing those narratives. It was kind of like, oh, like, that's not our struggle. That's not it. Like, the only thing we have to worry about is undocumented issues. That's the Latinx issue, right? And that is a very large issue for us. But it's also important for us to understand that we're not the only ones involved in that issue, and that we're also a part of so many other things that we like, conversations that we need to be a part of, right? Like, there's so much other stuff happening, and Latina Rebels was that, right? And so around that time, I began a poetry collective with a friend of mine, Angela Aguirre, and we had Chingona Fire. And we were hosting poetry open mics once a month here in LA that would have like about 100 people show up, 100 plus people show up every month. And it was really beautiful. And we were centering only women, femme, and non-binary folks. And so basically no cis men. And they were allowed to attend, but we just didn't share the microphone with them. And our goal was to shift the narrative of poetry in that area. And so Prisca was going to be in town for a conference. And we were like, let's do a meetup. Oh, because you were like, what bar should we go to? Let's go out. And I said, why don't we just open it up and invite, like,
you totally did.
all the chingonas and rebeldes. Like, let's just hang out. So we were going to go to this one spot. Our homegirl got us kicked out. Well, got us in because she had an empty liquor bottle in her purse. And then we went to the spot across the street. And then I remember Prisca was wearing these big old platform shoes, a little short dress. And it was when you had your half and half on.
Yeah.
Right? Like your half, like, platinum and then half dark hair, like Cruella, but like just a brown, like a brown Cruella, right? And Diosa.
Who were we? What were we?
I don't even know. We were babies because Diosa and Mala were there of Locatora Radio. Raquel, I always mispronounce her last name. Can you pronounce it for me, please? Raquel.
Richard. I just say Richard.
Richard. I tried to pronounce it once and she just like leaned in and she's like, you're going to fuck it up. And I'm like, yeah. I can spell it. But Raquel was there, myself, Gordita Applebum, Caro.
Yeah.
Amongst a bunch of, it was like 30 something of us.
Sassy. Yeah.
Sassy was there. So many of us. And we took over this club and we were drinking and we were partying and we were all these intellectual women like that are driving the narrative of so many important conversations, but we just wanted to turn up one night.
Really like, fuck respectability politics.
And we wouldn't like talk to the men. We were like, all of them. And they were very confused. One of them at the bar asked me if it was my birthday. He thought it was like my birthday party. And I'm like, no. He's like, then what are you guys doing? I'm like, we're just friends.
Yeah.
We're just hanging out.
Yeah, we filled up this bar. I never imagined that many people would show up. I thought maybe like 2 people, but it was like 50 people at one point. Like we filled up this bar.
And we like moved the furniture and we had like cornered off the whole part of it. And it was like, I don't think there have been many nights where I felt that free. Yeah. Like that empowered and that free. Like it was just such a powerful night. And then that's kind of where the Mami Collective came from, which is we're both Mami Collective with the Locatoras, Raquel, with Caro and our friend Maritza. And really it was just a group text where we're just hype each other up. but we've all gone on to do really important work. And I think that at the eye of that storm, there we were, right? And we were doing a lot of this stuff, and to think that, to fast forward 5-6 years to now, you on a book tour and me getting to be in conversation with you, I think it's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. And what were your dreams then, and how have they changed to your dreams now? Like in 2016, like what did you want? What were your desires? Like what was
I was so lost. I was like, I was trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. I had a master's and nobody wanted to hire me. So I was like doing temp jobs. Like I was trying to like not run into someone's arms to like, because that's what, you know, you do. It's like a socialization. Like, te van a cuidar. Somebody will take care of you, at least in my context. So yeah, I was struggling to be a person. And I'm telling you, I had like a different job every 2 weeks. Like I just was temping, and it was just struggle bus. But like us gathering and LR gave me life. But without it, it would have been impossible.
I think it's important to share that with folks, that when we're creating, right, a lot of the creation is done through a lot of pain and a lot of like not having a sense of direction, but have a lot of it is a search for self, right? Like we're creating in this space where, in this vacuum, it almost feels like it, where we're like, who am I? What am I? What am I doing? Like, what is the purpose of my voice in this world? And sometimes we could release these projects and it's still not completely the answer, but it's a little bit better, you know? It's a little bit there. Yeah, like what would you say that the book has given you answers to?
It's clarified that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I think for a long time, it just happened to me. And like I said, I was holding on. And like you just never, I was living semester by semester, like, because I was like, people booked me and I got paid to go in the fall. I don't know why. And then it happens for the spring, and I'm like, okay. And then it happens again in the fall, and then it happens in the spring. And then suddenly it was like 4 years in, and I was like, is this my career? Is this my job? I just didn't feel like it was, because what was paying the bills was the talks, not my writing. Because I got to a place where I was only publishing in these small indie Latinx blogs or Black-owned magazines, but really small places where they're paying me like $50 for a piece. And I got burned out really quick. Like all the traveling, all the writing, I just like hit a wall. And then I just said, I don't want to write anymore. Consistent.
Yeah, but I also want to bring up a point that it wasn't that other folks weren't aware of what you were doing. I want to bring light to the fact that you walk away from things that don't feel aligned with your calling or the message you're giving folks, or your morals, or you keep integrity or whatever. And like, how has that been? Like, because you've always been a bold voice in that, where you're like, no.
I burned a lot of bridges, which is the whole thing about, like, I just was tired of that. Like, I just got tired of like wanting to have integrity and wanting to just not write listicles just to keep up this career going, because it was like happening now. I might as well stay here. I didn't want to do that. And I just got tired of the door getting slammed in my face often, though. Like, people knew who I was, but then they didn't. I'm very niche. So I got to, like, Me Too put me, like, I signed all the paperwork, I did everything, and I like got onboarded. And the way that it used to work is that you pitch something and it goes in a queue, and the editors, there's like 5 editors at the time, whatever, of at least in the section that I was writing in, and they pick the piece, If you get selected, then you write the thing, but if you don't, you just pitch something else. And I was like pitching and nobody picked up my stuff, and I was like, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of the places that can pay me more don't think that there's a place for the writing that I do, because it is weird and it is is experimental. But I don't just want to write anything. I wanted to write this kind of stuff. So
yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't call it weird. I mean, it's different, right? Like, I mean, I think weird is a good thing too. But I also think that if you were a white woman writing these things, it wouldn't have been much of the same backlash, right? Or the same resistance.
yeah.
But like, it's been hard, and like I know we both have experienced a lot of heartbreak with these platforms, right? That are said to be created to highlight our voices and to give our readers someone that looks like themselves in us. And then like the heartbreak of like, you know, somebody said, I can't believe Twitter hasn't verified you. And I just realized you're not verified on Twitter.
Remember when I tried to ask them in that Twitter meetup?
You're like, bitch, you keep inviting me to everything.
You give me sweaters with my like URL, like you just like, can you just verify me? And they're like,
it's like that guy that takes you everywhere and like
story of my life, y'all.
And lives without you, but won't call you his girlfriend. And you're like, but you're crying at my house at 2 a.m. Like, what Twitter? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I have my feelings about these platforms.
Yeah.
Watch
I've been very malcriada.
I wait for and take my verification and be like, get ready with Prisca. Thank you. But I love that you've been very malcriada, because it's given me permission to be that.
Yeah.
We've been malcriadas together.
Yeah, you totally are malcriada, and I love it. I love it, because I know I can say anything and you'll back it up, and then you say something and I'm right there. I'm like, let's go.
And that's what makes us powerful. And like, I will tell you all, like the people viewing, we're about to move into the Q&A, but I will tell the people viewing that like we are more powerful than folks allow us to know. And I know that when I get invited to do conversations about books, I don't always talk a lot about the book, because I think that you're going to purchase the book and you're going to hear about it. I think it's important for y'all to learn about the person that wrote the book and like what their dreams for their book is and what the process to getting to the book was, because it makes it that much more valuable. Like you have that information with you when you sit down with it and you're able to explore and open that up and be like, well, like I knew that this is what Prisca was going through at this time and at this time and here and there. And so hopefully we've been able to kind of give you some context of like all of that this beautiful woman has, like, and I call her beautiful not only because of her appearance, but because of that freaking fearless heart she has, and like that malcriada rinchuda like in her that I freaking love, because it's like it gives so many people permission to be the same. And we're powerful, and folks are so afraid of that. Like we took on a major network. I'm not gonna go into the story. It's a long story. But basically they were trying to run some shit on us, like individually.
Oh no, we talk.
and then we talked and we're like, oh, so we got our Twitter fingers.
Yeah.
And we're like, blah, blah, blah. And then I wasn't tagging them. I was just mentioning them. And then Prisca tagged them. And I was just like, oh, we're doing it for real. All right. So we start tagging them.
Malcriada, y'all. Malcriada.
And they had been ignoring us. And the minute we tagged them, we got emails and phone calls. Not from the people, but from like executives. And we're like, too late.
Yeah. We're all done.
Okay. So we're going to look at the questions now.
Yes.
Okay. So at the top of the list, I'm going to answer the ones that have been voted on. If you all look at the questions and you want to ask a question yourself or vote on a question that already exists, we'll move them up and we'll try to get to them. So someone says, know that this book tackles some incredible but sensitive topics. What was the most challenging topic that you wrote about in the book? Also, what helped you overcome the challenge? And that's from Christy.
Toxic masculinity was awful to write. Awful. I cannot describe to y'all how much pain I was in.
Mhm.
I rewrote it at least 3 times. I cried through every rewrite. I kept feeling that guilt of like, I should protect them. I should take care of them. You're being too resentful. I just like heard all the things, like which is why even the quotes that I included, those were like a driving force. And there's a quote in there, I think it's Audre Lorde, but I'm not entirely sure. I can find it actually. The book is right here. But it was like, we are complicit in our own oppression. We are complicit in the toxicity of the patriarchy by just allowing it to exist and not speaking up and not doing anything about it. And things like that kept me going. I was like, you have to do this.
Looking for it.
I know. I'm like, I'm gonna. It's probably in the mail.
They're gonna buy the book and find the quote.
I know.
I mean, that's what it is. Everything, you just redirect and replug the book. But I think that's really true. Like the wanting to protect the subjects of the books, right? And
the men in your family, even when they don't do anything to protect you.
Because we're raised being told it's our job to take care of them.
Mm-hmm. And so our feelings are second to theirs. Mm-hmm.
And so you writing this feels like a betrayal, right?
Yeah.
Like even though it here, like we're wired to like be like, this is like, I'm being a bad woman, a bad daughter.
Yeah. And I had to utilize, like when I talk about mi papi in loving ways and the memories that I love about him, I say mi papi. When I say things that feel more hurtful to me, I talk about my father or my dad. Like I use things to create distance from the character that was this person that's a living, breathing person.
I do that too when I'm talking. But what I do with my writing is when I'm talking about my sober dad, I call him papi. And when I'm talking about my drunk dad, I call him my father. Mm-hmm. And that's how like I unknowingly create a distance, and then I've just kept it up in my work.
It's disassociating on paper, y'all. But I had to. It was too real, and it didn't do justice to my papi the ways that because my papi is still my papi, and I think I just tried to hold that tension the whole time.
Yeah,
like I have a lot of love for this person, and like this is all the awful things that I resent him for, and also I have a lot of love for this person. And so it felt like at one point I just was like, tell it like a ghost story. Don't end this in a way that feels disingenuous to like everything you've done and lived through and how you're coping today.
Talking like a writer. Okay, so Jokabet or Hokabet, I'm sorry if either are incorrect, says, first of all, Prisca, you're glowing, girl. Your lipstick and dress combo is perfect. My question is, what was an early experience where you learned the language had power, and how did that power translate to your writing?
There were a lot of things. The only one that's coming to mind is not something I feel like I can tell. But I think my whole life I've understood that language had power. I didn't understand it until it feels like somebody woke me up to it at one point. And it would happen during my graduate program. And then I began to see the ways that what I had internalized about women because of things I had always been told, what I had internalized about indigeneity, about brownness, because of things I had been told. I think it was always, I've always known that because it was affecting me. Like your body knows before you do almost. Mm-hmm. And so I had to get to the point of clarity. And that wasn't until 2012.
Wow.
I was 27.
27. I mean, your Saturn return, right?
Yeah. It was awful.
God, I don't wish want to think of when I was 27. Prisca and I are very close in age. I think we're just a year apart.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's really nice that because a lot of our friends are younger than us, right? And
Yeah.
so whenever I see you talking about it, I'm like, okay, yeah, you can talk about age because you're in your late 30s like I am.
Like
These
you passed
26-year-olds, I'm like, shut up.
the
26 and you're talking about
I'm like,
I
go through your Saturn return first. You'll
yeah,
see.
I
It's
can't party
so
like I
cute.
used to. But you're about to be 40. Okay.
I
So,
love it.
what do you hope girls and women of color will gain from your book?
I hope they gain whatever they need to gain from it. I think that I want it to just fan a flame or to spark a flame. But I want it to be whatever it is. My flame was sparked, I think, in high school, but it became a wildfire like
Yeah.
a decade later. So I think it takes time, and I'm very clear that liberation is lifelong, and it takes a lot of time, and you just needs to start somewhere.
Wow. Okay. Next question is from Magdalena. Nicaraguan American here. Do you speak using the Central American dialect when speaking Spanish amongst non-Central Americans, or do you code switch dialects as well?
Pues se me sale lo Nica, no sé cómo borrarlo. Like, I don't know how to not be Nica in my Spanish, and I think I just I try, but it just does not come out. Like, I think I'm just very Nica, y'all. Like, I have met Nicas who have thick English speaking accents, and when we hang, they're like, "Oh wow, you're really Nica." like I really, it's there. I wish I could move in spaces better. I think it would have benefited me, but then again, I would have burned the bridges to get there anyway, so maybe it's okay.
Trust me, I've been to those places.
No.
All those conferences where I look around and I'm like, I was at one of those and the Sonora Dinamita came on, and I was like, the music of my people. And then they started laughing, and I was like, no, but this is really the music of my people.
Why aren't you paying attention to what I'm saying? Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm getting notes to move on.
Oh.
No, we have 3 questions left. Do you think imposter syndrome is just our way of not fully accepting what God really has chosen and guiding us to do something great? From Lillian.
Wait, say that again.
I want to answer like it was asked to me, but it wasn't. I said, do you think imposter syndrome is just our way of not fully accepting what God really has chosen and guided us to do something great?
Yeah, I think I believe in fate. Maybe, I don't know. I think it's also it's systemic too. Like, it's so much bigger, I think, than like, I know brilliant women that I went to school with in high school. Brilliant. Like, I was like an ugly rock next to them. Like, they're brilliant, who just weren't put in the right classes, weren't encouraged, and like didn't really do much with all of that. I guess I don't, that's not fair to say, because they could be perfectly happy at anything that they're at. But like, I think that the oppression is real.
I know, but I get it. Like, I know poets that their verbiage and their skill set when it comes to poetry, and I don't mean about academically, I just mean just in like their natural talent is so much more than what I said, like I feel like like you said, an ugly rock, and that's not like self-deprecating. Like, sometimes you're like, you're just in awe of somebody else's skill, right?
Yeah.
But these systems like stomp that
Spirits.
you know,
Yeah.
like I didn't come up in academic setting, and I feel like that's my superpower, because I wasn't taught to question my voice the way other people do, and the way that I see a lot of my colleagues, including you, have to like recalibrate sometimes every now and then and be like, no, I get to build the canon now. Like, this is something new beyond what we were told looks a specific way, you know? And I think that we're all capable of knowing we have a calling because we answer the calling. We're doing what we need to do. But imposter syndrome is systemic. Like you said, systemic. It's us constantly being compared to whiteness. Everything from the numbers of books we sell to the book proposals to like even getting the privilege of having this out in the world is operating in systems that usually have kept us out. So that's why please buy 3 copies of For Brown Girl today. Okay, we're gonna move to the next questions. Can you speak to your commitment's approach to more expansive understanding of gender identity throughout your book, which I so appreciate and love, Christian? Okay, hold on. Let me go through. Can you speak to your commitment or / approach to a more expansive understanding of gender identity throughout your book?
Yeah, I'm in spaces that are queer. I'm in community with trans people. Like it's a new vocabulary that I was introduced to like 2013, like when I was starting to become the person I became. So I've had hiccups because you're learning along the way. But I've like, when you go to seminary, so I went to a divinity school, and you're not like a straight cis man, being in seminary, everybody else has got like their stories of like being rejected if they were women, because we know the church is really sexist, generally doesn't ordain a lot of women. Not a lot of denominations do. Women, so like add the intersections, women of color, queer people of color, women, men, trans people, like that. Those are my friends, like the outsiders, the ones who like carried a lot of shame and had to like work past the shame to be in this program, and some of them got ordained. So that's been my community, and I've just been learning and been committed to having those people in my life. And
and that's so beautiful. Also, I think I love that for Brown Girls, the dialogue is starting, like, it's just your first book, right? And a lot of the dialogue is dissecting your own experience with everything. And I know that in the future, like, you know, you got through the first one, and then in the future, I know that your conversation is going to keep spreading and keep opening. And that's a dope thing. You are a prolific writer, and there's tons of books in you. I wanted to have shelves like right next to each other, like top shelf, a bunch of poems, and the bottom shelf, a bunch of Prisca's books, and y'all are going to buy all of them. Okay, the last question that is coming from Ria, and then I have a question for you, and then we're going to wrap up.
Okay.
I love the community you all have with each other. I'd love to be with other Latinas tackling these issues and supporting each other. What is the best way to form community in Latinx minority U.S. states? A book like this is so important for some of us here. Oh, this is such a good question to end the Q&A with.
Yeah, you have to, like, I feel like you would say, I don't know what you would say actually, but I think you have to be fearless. I wasn't really like, I mean, I've always been extroverted, but I got some years of like severe anxiety where I just like went in myself. It was like in my late teens to early 20s. I just kind of like shrunk a little bit, I feel. And when I got to my graduate program and started learning all these things, I felt like I had to become an extrovert, like push myself to be in uncomfortable situations, to be like, I want to be your friend. Like I would listen to somebody in lecture who had like, you know, when they're doing roll call, they'll like, professors would be like, say your name, like your pronouns, what you're studying, what you like researching. And I would like hear an accented Spanish or English with like research that was fascinating, or like somebody with just like Martinez last name, and I'd be like, and I just go up to those people, and like a lot of my friends can say this story. Like I just went up to them after class and was like, can we be best friends? And like I didn't mean to be, I wasn't like, I meant it. I was like, I want to know you. I want to be in community with you. What do we have to do that? And like sometimes it flopped. Sometimes I met people and it just we didn't vibe. But you had to risk the flop to get the joy of like finding your Yesika or finding your, like your community and your people. But you're gonna have flops and you have to be okay with that.
Absolutely. And I will tell you this, that I'm in LA, right? Like you would think we're everywhere, but I'm Salvadoran in LA, which is a Mexican centered city, right? And I went to Instagram looking for other Salvadoreñas, other Central American women. I went to Instagram looking for other fat brown women. I went looking for people that were at my intersections. And the internet allowed me to find them. Tumblr, Instagram, Twitter. Don't discredit social media. People like to talk about social media being a fake place and people whatever. It's real people behind the keyboards and behind the screens and all that. And some of the friendships you make that way will be your lifelong friendships and will push you along. Like Prisca and I would not know each other if it was not for Instagram.
Yeah. Tumblr, I think.
Tumblr. It was when Facebook was still relevant. Tumblr, and then it became Instagram like later on. But if it wasn't for these social media platforms, our paths would have never crossed. She was somewhere else, and she was doing yoga in Florida, and I was working in a parking booth here in LA. Like,
you ain't lying. Yeah.
But I miss your yoga videos. But
I'm dead. Y'all, if you're a real one, you remember this.
Yes, if you are a day one, you will remember her yoga videos. But please purchase a copy of For Brown Girls with Sharp Edges and Tender Hearts. Vroman has signed copies of them. The book is so beautiful, y'all. It is so beautiful. I had the privilege of reading it beforehand and providing a blurb on the back, but so I knew the book. I had experienced the book already, but once it came in the mail in the hardcover, I cried because I was just so proud of my friend and so proud of this book. And this is a book that I will share with my niece that's 10 years old when she's old enough to read it. And please, if you have younger siblings, nieces, nibblings, please pass this along. And you and I both call our books our children.
Yeah.
Right? And so as the mother of this beautiful, beautiful little girl, I always default to calling books girls.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This beautiful, berrinchuda, tremenda, desmadrosa. In El Salvador, we would call her cachimbona. What is your dream for this beauty?
I hope she just ends up in as many places as possible. And like is discreet enough that someone picks it up and doesn't know what's about to happen, but enough someone's pick it up, and then there's like this critical mass, and we just like, I don't know. That's the dream, but that's like wild.
The day that I want to see her in airports, because I feel that's where books sneak up on people. Because you're about to board a flight, you grab the book, and then even if it's not the book you would have picked up, surprise, you're on a flight with the book now. And you're going to get off the airplane radicalized.
Yeah, that's the dream.
I love you so much, Prisca. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Vroman, so much for hosting us. And please, y'all, keep spreading the word on this book. Keep showing it love. This is how we support the books we want to see in the world. And yeah.
Well, virtual applause for Prisca and Yesika. Thank you so much for your wonderful conversation. That was really fun. And thank you to everyone who tuned in tonight. I know there was quite a lot of you. Again, if you would like a signed book plate with your order, just write signed book plate in the order comments when you're checking out your cart. If you ordered your book but forgot to write signed book plate, you can just email us at orders@vromansbookstore.com and just let our staff know, and they'll send you the signed book plate. And for those of you who tuned in late, don't worry, a replay will be available after this broadcast ends. Yeah, so share it with friends who are unable to make it tonight. And I think that about does it. Thank you, everyone, again. Stay safe and have a good night. All right.
Bye. Love you, Prisca. Thank you so much,
Love
Vroman.
you. Bye.